I'm a dad of a child I don't live with, and you know, it's not the mums that make us feel so small as parents. It's society is the problem. It's not women. I think a lot of women get quite defensive, and and rightfully so, because they have to see all this stuff. But in my experience, it's not my ex, it's not my wife, it is society. It is when you walk into a hospital and you're reminded that you don't matter too much. In COVID, we weren't allowed to be there. I get it to a degree, but there are moments we're never going to get back. We get weeks paternity leave if you're employed. If you're self-employed and trying to provide for your family, then you don't. And we just don't get much. And God forbid you're one of the dads out there that is going through a difficult fight. There's no such thing as an easy fight for a dad when it comes to a child. It would take absolute extreme circumstances for a dad to have any kind of advantage, whereas it doesn't work that way, the other way around. But again, I'm pretty certain women listening to this isn't a dig at women in the slightest. It really isn't, because I don't find that the women are doing it. I think it is society and old-fashioned rules and ways.
Definitely that. I did a podcast not too long ago. I was a guest on Swan Effect podcast. There's a mum who does a podcast about parenting, and we talked about something very similar. Is I think from starting this and doing social media and coming across a lot of people that are interested in this kind of topic, men and women, I think there is a community and there are people that have changed their thinking towards how dads fit into the picture and what is expected of dads in their role now. But still society hasn't quite caught up with it. Not society, but the what's the word?
Hard to pinpoint what it is. It's almost, I think it is almost, even I can't think of the word now. It's just been this way. I think for so long, dads went to work, they earned the money, they came home to a cooked meal, and that was kind of their life. They were a little bit strict with the kids, but they were loved by them because they were never there. I think we've just struggled to move on. Women's equal rights have very rightfully caught up with that. That is, and I mean that is right. But I think the dad side of things has kind of been left behind a little bit.
Not quite caught up yet. And obviously, the country runs by people working, and somebody's got to work. If the dad wants to have maternity leave off, someone's got to work still. So I think things haven't quite caught up yet with
No, they haven't. And I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a really good example of this, because this isn't something that's horrific, and it might sound petty to some, but it's something that I've never been able to get out of my head. When my wife and I got married, I went into my daughter's school, who I've always had a good relationship with the school. I've always been involved. I've always known, at the time I was a joint custody dad. There's technically no such term. I obviously paid my maintenance and whatnot because she needed a residential address, but I had her for roughly half the time. And we had a good setup and a good relationship with all of us involved. But I went into the school and I asked if my daughter could have the Friday off. So this is little school now. This isn't senior school. She didn't have exams, 11 plus, nothing like that. And I asked if she could have the Friday off. This was about 5 months in advance for my wife's and my wedding. Now, the lady at the school said, we can't authorise that. And I said, well, how come? I'll pay the fine, I'll do whatever. But she needs to be off. It's our wedding day. And they called someone else down. I don't know if it's a head of year or a headmistress, but it's someone of seniority in the school. I think it might have been someone to do with relations or something like that, having said that. And they said that she could have it off. It wasn't the request that was the issue. It was who was asking. I needed her mum to ask for her to have the day off.
Okay.
So I turned around and said, look, that sounds a bit odd. I said, so I know her mum is getting married soon as well. Does she need to ask my permission? Oh, no, Mr. Morris. No, that's fine. She can just book it off. That hurt. That hurt quite a lot. I have to go to my ex-wife to ask if she can ask my daughter to have a day off for my wedding, but yet she doesn't have to do the same thing. And it's the other little things, like there's been times I've taken my oldest to the doctors and then I phoned up for a result and can't get it. So that's where, again, I want it to be really well documented here that it isn't women that caused the problem. It is the behind the scenes stuff, the old fashioned stuff that just make us, we're just reminded very regularly that don't mean to, don't hope this can be okay to say on here. It's almost, I sometimes feel like I'm almost to society a walking sperm donor. It's what it kind of feels like.
Okay.
You know, not with my.
You can say that on the podcast. That's fine.
I also don't want it to sound like I'm ranting about it. It's just something that I think, again, I see all my kids. I've got to say that. I've got no reason to be saying negative stuff about any of the mums or anything else. But again, it's just, I know there's dads out there that don't have what I've got, and it probably is ridiculously frustrating. But I mean, one other thing I will say, because I feel it's important to stick up for women as well and society, is that unfortunately, there's a big majority of dads that don't help us.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I think a lot of us feel sorry for ourselves at times as individuals. But there is a lot of guys out there that don't really deserve the title of dad or father, and they're the ones that are really holding this back as well.
Yeah. That's, it's the case in a wider society with, you look at recent events last summer in the football, and there's a certain particular part of the crowd that are well behaved and doing okay, and then there's another crowd that are just causing mayhem, and that's what gets all the headlines, and that's the reason why we'll probably never be able to host a major tournament in this country, for example. The bad eggs tend to give the rest a bad name, and they're the ones that get the most attention, aren't they? But
well, it's a race. I think we like to sort of punish the negative opposed to reward the positive a lot.
Yeah, it's a bit of a societal thing, but a political thing with the old traditions and ways of things have always been, and that's how they should always be. And I think we just need to rethink it and catch up a bit.
I think that would be a really big step in the right direction. You know, dads being allowed to have a little bit more time off for the birth of a child, being able to be a bit more involved with certain things. It'd be hard to manage to dictate what dads can and can't do that as well. But yeah, it's a hard one. It's one of these things. It needs to change. I just unfortunately don't see it ever really changing.
Maybe not for a while.
No, it's just that it's a sad comment to be making, I know, but it's just when I'm quite a logical thinker. I overthink quite a lot, but in kind of a good way. I just don't see how it would begin and what they would do to initiate that change. But hopefully